feel like it's really important in buildings like the Chem building, especially because they're very new and very nice, but they just don't have a lot of like color or life in them with all the labs and stuff. And, the Chem building especially, I find to be kind of a stressful place for some people. So I thought putting something green in there would bring a sense of vitality to the building.
Hello, my name is Cecelia, and this is Pilot Projects, Stories from the Jefferson Trust. Multiple studies have shown that having plants in a workspace has all kinds of benefits. Plants can help you be more productive, improve your mood, and just help you feel better overall. I have noticed these benefits in my own life as I have slowly expanded the collection of plants in my living room. I love looking at my aloe plants and succulents as the morning sun shines through their translucent leaves. I love watching them grow and noticing how they change with the seasons. And I feel a lot of pride that I've managed to keep some of them alive for nearly a decade through multiple moves and changes in indoor climate. The star of today's episode of Pilot Projects, University of Virginia student Katherine Kearney, feels similarly about the plants she nurtures in the chemistry building at UVA. Katherine sat down with Sound on Ground's producers Sara Bastianelli and Jason Evans Groth to discuss her Jefferson Trust grant project. I'll let Katherine introduce herself.
Well, my name is Katherine Kearney. I'm a third year. I'm a chemistry major, which is fitting for my project, of course.
Can you tell us about your Jefferson Trust project?
Yeah. So I actually inherited it from someone who's now an alum through the chemistry fraternity Alpha Chi Sigma. And she just was posting in, our group chat last year about, I'm actually in charge of the chem building plant. So does anybody want to take over watering for the next year? And I was like, oh yeah, I have time. I'm in the building all the time. I could do that. And once I took over the project, I started noticing a lot of the plants are some are not doing so well, and they unfortunately frequently get stolen. That's my biggest issue is I think people don't realize it's a student. So they think it's, a funny little thing to steal them. I took over the project and I was like, I bet I could expand this. And she actually got a Jefferson Trust grant for the art competition in the chem building. Right. So people submitted, artworks, and they all got put up in the building with funds from the Jefferson Trust. And there's little stickers on each artwork title and everything that say Jefferson Trust. So she was the one who told me about the grant. And I figured I could try and apply for one and use it to expand the plants because I grew to really, really like them.
Can you talk about the original program that you had?
It started with her. So I know it went through one more person before it got to me. But I think she brought in a bunch of her own personal plants and just put them around the building because the building really needed some life. I love the chem building, but it's a little sterile sometimes, especially with all the labs so visible. So she brought a bunch of plants in and noticed that people just really like them. People choose to sit at the tables with the plants instead of tables without plants. So, she was just looking for someone to water them over the next year. She lives in Charlottesville, but, just can't take care of them regularly. So she was looking for someone to do that. And I offered. So that's how it got to me.
So now that you're expanding on it, bringing some more plants into the building, what was the process of choosing which plants to get, where to put them, and such?
We were kind of going quantity over quality, just because I think more green, I don't think people are, going to care whether the plant is a really nice, fancy one or not. In fact, if it's nicer, it might get stolen. I went to budget type stores. Trader Joe's has a lot of good little starter plants, and I got a couple cuttings for free. And I actually found that Lidl, the grocery store, had a ton of great large plants. So I started at those places. I didn't budget super, super well just because I didn't know what plants were going to be available when I actually got around to shopping. So over spring break, I just went around and did what I could, and I found what I could, and I thrifted some pots, and I bought others from, stores like TJ Maxx. And because I was the one in charge, I got to pick what I wanted. So there's a lot of pink plants because I like the color pink. I mostly put plants in the alcoves, which have nice big windows that get sunlight all day. And the plants I picked to go in the second floor study area, which has no windows, are actually doing really, really well. I think I have a syngonium down there, and it is so happy the last I checked. And I focused on getting bigger plants because those are harder to steal. So I know the small ones fit into a backpack really well and people just take them, but they don't want to take my big plants by the front door.
Do you have any strategies, I'll use your word, for how to stop some
Big
ideas?
plants and heavy pots seems to be the most effective thing. I decided to test it a little bit. So I got, a bunch of medium, large plants in heavier pots. I might start putting bricks in the bottom of bigger pots because nobody wants to carry that. And then I also got a couple succulents, and I don't think there's a single succulent left the last I checked. And I also had trouble with the cuttings that I'd gotten for free. I got them going, they were propagated, they were ready to pot. And what ended up being the worst incident was when Science Olympiad came through and there was a bunch of kids in the building. I was the only non-parent adult in the building that day because I was watering the plants, as I do every weekend. And we had some casualties, unfortunately.
For anybody listening that might not be into the plant lingo, can you explain a little bit about cutting and propagation, what all that entails?
Oh, yeah. I'm new to it, too. This is just, I offered because I was available, but now I'm really into it and have plants of my own now. So it's really exciting. Cuttings are when you snip a piece of a plant off with the right nodes to grow roots and stuff, so you can get a whole second plant from an original plant. And propagating is just the process of getting those roots going. I usually put them in water to get the roots going because then you can also see it. So one plant that propagates really well is my Christmas cactus. That thing is so easy to propagate because you can see exactly where you need to cut. In fact, I accidentally knocked a couple leaves off and now they're growing in my house so I can get them back in the chem building.
So you said that it has now expanded into your personal life with what you do too?
Yeah. I remember one day feeling really defeated just because I had a bad weekend where a bunch of plants had been stolen or died or something. And I was like, I can get plants for myself that no one's going to mess with that I like, and they can all be pink if I want. So Trader Joe's is a really good place to get little starters. So I'm very proud of my little plants in my closet back there.
Yeah, I love that. So you're a chemistry major. What overlaps do you kind of see between chemistry and then plants in the natural life?
I'm still new to it, but as I'm learning more, some sources talk about oh, well, the pH of the soil could be different, or you want to get you want to get chunky soil that lets air get to the roots. So I'm seeing some overlap with chemistry. It's oh, I know how pH works. And oh, I know how, the air works and how you want to get good airflow. It's a little bit like some of the processes you do in Orgo lab or something.
What was your research process like for learning how to take care of them effectively?
It was a lot of trial and error, which is maybe not the best way to do it, but I didn't have a lot of time on my hands. So I was well, it just says to water them. So I just had to figure out how much water. Some got very angry at me because I was giving them too much water because I was just so excited. And then others, my peace lily upstairs gets very, very dramatic if I don't water it all the time. But I can usually see, I'm there multiple days a week, so I can usually see who's upset with me about the watering. But the research of it was mostly trial and error, just figuring out what works and who likes sunlight, who doesn't. And then I've been doing some research at home, oh, what are some good plants that are not going to get fussy with me? And now we have some pest issues. One of the plants has spider mites, which are a pain. And some of my plants at home have fungus gnats. So I'm okay, well, how do I kill these? So I've been Googling a lot of stuff and it seems to be working. So I'll be a plant parent.
Do you have any cool tips that you've learned, things to use to help with the mites or
Yeah. Such? I learned some from Olivia. She says neem oil is a good natural pesticide. I don't have that, but Google said isopropyl alcohol, diluted, works pretty well with the leaves, and it got rid of most of my mites. So that seemed to work really well. And then I got this these mosquito bits, which is just a pesticide to put in the soil to keep the fungus gnats away. So that seems to be working right now. That's an ongoing battle because it has to go in with the water, but some of my plants get too angry if I water them frequently. So I'm going to try my best with that.
So why do you think it's important to have this sort of natural life in workspaces in the chem building?
I feel like it's really important in buildings like the chem building, especially because they're very new and very nice, but they just don't have a lot of color or life in them with all the labs and stuff. And, the chem building especially, I find to be kind of a stressful place for some people. I personally really like it. I go there every weekend, but some people just dread going to the chem building. So I thought putting something green in there would bring a little, especially because it could have been fake plants. My PI that I do research for was like, well, why don't you just get fake plants? I was like, no, but it's not the same. It's not the same. Like having something living is just so cool. They bring something nice to look at, but also a sense of vitality to the building.
Well, how much time do you spend? You say you're there every weekend, maybe for studying, but also for plants.
Yeah. Buying the plants and repotting them into their little forever pots was definitely the most time consuming thing, but it was over break, so it wasn't too bad. But the watering usually takes me around 20 minutes because I have to walk through all the floors. And I have it as a nice little study break in between, whatever I'm working on that weekend. And we call it the plant walk if I'm with friends. I'm like, do you guys want to go for a plant walk? Can go water my plants and I'll tell you about them for the millionth time, and make observations about, well, this one's growing a new leaf, but this one definitely has bugs or something.
Did you expect to like it as much as you do?
Not at all. I didn't know I had a green thumb. I thought I was going to kill them all, and I was very worried about that. But once I got into the regular watering, and really the most rewarding part was seeing them grow for the first time, like really seeing growth from some of them, or like, seeing one having trouble and then fixing it, whatever it was. There's a vine on, I think, the first floor that was looking terrible. And I like looked into the pot and it's like, half the soil is gone. How did somebody perfectly cut this in half and have all the roots? I don't know what happened with that one. I don't think I want to know either, but I put soil back in and suddenly it's doing fantastic. And I figured out the right amount of water for each plant. So they're all looking so much better. And I think that was what really set it in my mind. Like, this is something I want to do. I want to keep plants. This is so cool.
Have you gotten feedback from people about the delight they may be experiencing by having them there?
I've gotten some feedback from students. I met a couple of students one day who were like, oh, you're in charge of the plants. I love the plants. One girl even asked me for a propagation. I was like, yeah, as long as you don't kill my plants, you're so good. And she said a lot of professors actually like them. And I've gotten comments from some of my professors. My PChem 2 professor was telling me like, oh, you're in charge of the plants. I love the plants. Oh, I would like to get a plant outside her office at some point. She was a wonderful professor. That was very exciting. But it seems like people really enjoy them. And sometimes I do get, feedback like, oh, well, professors want flowering plants. It's like, okay, I can get some kalanchoes in here or something, So it's totally cool to hear people. It's usually after they find out that these are my plants, of course. But they're like, oh, I like this specific plant, or I like this one. Someone really liked the tall pinkish one that I keep by the front door. So it's just cool to hear what people like.
We constantly have these discussions about unexpected delight. You don't look for it. Like, you're going to a place for a thing. And then you have these moments of delight that you're not expecting. And maybe you don't even know how to provide feedback for it. But like, I feel like when I've been on the side, and it sounds like you're on this side now too, where that is like a thing that you're doing, you're not waiting for feedback, but getting it is also delightful. So like, everyone gets that moment of delight of like, this helped them briefly for 5 seconds.
Oh, it's totally rewarding.
Have you thought about making this a community thing where you maybe where you just tell the community there, like, hey, if you have these things, the chemistry building could get more plants if you want to donate them? Pots
have a little donation box or something. That could be really, especially for fourth years who, are leaving the university but don't want to take a plant with them. I claimed some pots because whatever plants were in them were dead. And Olivia told me like, well, these aren't ours. I was like, well, this has been sitting here for a month and it's clearly not alive and no one's taking care of it. So I'm just going to take the pot. And if someone gets upset with me, I will replace it. But it's a free pot and I could put something nice in it. So I claimed a couple of those, but I could recruit people to send in donations or even like propagations or something. I think that could be really cool.
Is there anything that we didn't ask you about that you think is important to talk about or people should know?
Nothing too crazy. It would be nice if people knew that it was a student in charge of it, because I think then they wouldn't take them so often. But I think that is also just part of the process. And if they take my plants, I hope they take good care of them.
Yeah, well, I think that is all we have from you today. Thank you so much for talking with us about your project.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Pilot Projects, Stories from the Jefferson Trust, is a Sound on Grounds podcast. Sound on Grounds and all the projects featured in Pilot Projects are sponsored by Jefferson Trust grants. You can find more Sound on Grounds podcasts at virginiaaudio.com/soundongrounds. This podcast was engineered and recorded by Sara Bastianelli and Jason Evans Groth in the Robertson Media Center audio studio in Clemens Library. It was written and edited by me, Cecelia Parks. The Pilot Project's show cover was designed by UVA alum Carina Velocci, and all the music you hear in this episode was written and recorded by Jason Evans Groth in the RMC audio studio. Many thanks again to Katherine for taking the time to share her story with us.